Welcome to A Long Way Through Scripture. I'm Catherine Schaefer. This is a slow week-by-week walk through the Bible, taken without rush or pressure. Each week we'll gently orient ourselves to where we are in Scripture, what kind of ground we're walking on, and one simple reflection to carry with us as we read. This isn't a daily reading challenge or a checklist. You can start wherever you are, move at your own pace, pause when life gets full, or return later. There's no catching up required here, just the invitation to stay with the text, one passage at a time. And I'm really glad you're here. So let's begin week 11, Deuteronomy 18 to 34. Standing at the edge and letting go. As we move into the final chapters of Deuteronomy, the tone shifts again, but this time it carries a sense of closing. The people are still standing at the edge of the land, but now there is a deeper awareness that something is about to end, even as something else is about to begin. Moses is still speaking, but his words begin to feel more like a final shaping than a continued instruction. There is a weight to them, not heavy in a burdensome way, but steady, as though he knows these are the last words he will leave with the people he has led for so long. The earlier chapters asked the people to remember. These chapters ask them to prepare. There's a forward-looking tone woven through this section. Moses speaks about leadership that will continue after him, about prophets who will arise, about the need for the people to remain attentive to God's voice, even when it does not come through the same familiar presence they have known. This is an important transition. For years, Moses has been the visible guide, the one who speaks, intercedes, and leads. But the relationship between God and his people was never meant to depend on one person alone. The people are being gently prepared for a future where they must listen, respond, and remain faithful without relying on the same form of leadership. There is both comfort and tension in that reality. As the chapters continue, Moses speaks about choices, not in a dramatic or urgent tone, but in a steady, clear way. The people are reminded that life and death, blessings and difficulty, are set before them in the path they choose. This is not presented as a threat, but as an honest reflection of how life unfolds when people align themselves with God's way or move away from them. What stands out here is the simplicity of the invitation. The people are not being asked to achieve something extraordinary. They are being asked to remain attentive, to walk in what has already been given, to choose life in the everyday decisions that shape who they become. There's also a sense of tenderness in these chapters. Moses speaks not as a distant leader, but as someone who has walked closely with this community through every stage of their journey. He has seen their fear, resistance, growth, failures, and their moments of trust. And now he is preparing to step away. That reality begins to surface more clearly as the chapters move forward. Moses knows he will not enter the land with them. The promise will be fulfilled, but he will not be the one to walk into it. There is something deeply human in that moment, something that does not need to be explained or resolved too quickly. He has carried the people this far. He has seen the wilderness, the struggles, the shaping, and now at the edge of the promise, his role comes to a close. The text does not rush past this. It allows space for the weight of it to be felt. Joshua is appointed as the next leader, not as a replacement in the sense of continuing the same presence, but as someone who will guide the people into the next phase of their story. The transition is quiet, intentional, and grounded in the understanding that the story belongs to God, not to any one person. Moses then speaks words that echo through the rest of Scripture. He calls the people to choose life, to love God, to walk in his ways, to remain rooted in the relationship that has carried them from the beginning. These words are not complicated. They are clear, almost simple in their structure, yet they hold a depth that unfolds over time. Choosing life is not a single moment. It is a pattern of living, a steady alignment of the heart and the actions that follow. As we move toward the final chapters, the tone becomes even more reflective. Moses sings a song that recounts the story of God's faithfulness and the people's tendency to forget. It is both a reminder and a warning, not meant to discourage, but to keep the people anchored in truth as they move forward. There's also a blessing spoken over the tribes, a final act of care from a leader who has carried them for so long. These words feel like a closing embrace, a way of placing each part of the community into God's hands as the story continues beyond him. And then, quietly, the story reaches its final moment with Moses. He goes up the mountain. He sees the land. The promise is visible before him, not distant anymore, but real and near. And there his life comes to an end. The text does not turn this into a dramatic scene. It is simple, almost still. Moses dies, and the people mourn. The leadership shifts. The story continues. There's something deeply meaningful in the way this ending is written. It does not center on what Moses did not receive. It centers on the faithfulness that carried the people to this point. The promise was never dependent on one person alone. It was always rooted in God's covenant. As you read through Deuteronomy 18 to 34 this week, you may feel the quiet weight of transition in these chapters. Endings and beginnings often exist together, even when they are difficult to hold at the same time. Moses' story closes, but the people's story does not. The wilderness is behind them. The land is ahead. And the presence of God, which has been with them from the beginning, remains. The reflection to carry with you this week is this: God's faithfulness continues, even when seasons end and roles change. There are moments in life when we stand at the edge of something new, carrying both the weight of what has been and the uncertainty of what comes next. Deuteronomy reminds us that the story does not depend on our ability to hold everything together. It continues because God remains faithful through every transition. As you read, allow yourself to sit with the stillness of this ending. Notice the care in the words, the steadiness of the tone, the way the story honors both the journey and the future. Stay with the transition, the quietness of the moment, the understanding that even when something ends, the story is still moving forward. And that is where this portion of the journey leaves us. At the edge of the land, at the close of one life, and at the beginning of what comes next. As you move into the reading this week, remember there's no rush. Read slowly, read a little at a time, or simply sit with the passages if that's what the week allows. Scripture doesn't ask us to perform, it invites us to remain. Everything connected to this journey lives in the show notes, the full reading plan, the free 5-day Start Here guide, and ways to support the podcast through Patreon if you'd like to help this project continue. Think of it as the little ecosystem that holds this whole journey together. You can always find more information at catherineschaefer.com, The Long Way Through Scripture. Thank you for walking this long way with me, and I'll meet you here again next week.